gavel. Okay.
Oh, gosh. I forgot that one, too.
Good evening. I'd like to call to order the July 9th, 2019, 7 p.m. regular city council meeting. Clerk, may we have a roll call, please?
Mayor Wright.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown.
Here.
Councilmember Krupa. Here. Councilmember Maya. Here. Councilmember Percival.
Here.
Thank you.
Item number 2, invocation by Michael Madrigal with the Interfaith Council will now give the invocation. It will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance given by Councilmember Percival.
O loving Creator God, we ask your blessings today on our meeting. We pray for our City Council, our Honorable Mayor. We pray for all of our first responders, for all of the city staff and their families. We also pray for those in the community who are sick, have a special need, those in the hospital. We ask your loving care, your intervention in their lives. O loving Creator God, we pray for all of the children in the community, that they will be safe and have good teachers, good examples, good caretakers in their parents, their families, and their teachers. We ask you to bless this meeting and help our city leaders to make good decisions that will improve the lives of the community. And again, we say thank you, O loving Creator God, for all the blessings that you give to each and every one of us. We thank you for our health, our lives, our families. We thank you for the beauty of this world, for the beauty of our city. And again, we pray that you will help to meet the needs of everyone in the community. Amen.
Please place your hand over your heart. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated.
There was no closed session scheduled, so we'll go on to communications from the public. Anyone who wishes to speak during the public comment or on a particular item will be required to fill out a speaker slip. Speaker slips must be turned into the city clerk. Each request will cover one speaker. Those who wish to speak must submit their own request to be called by the mayor. There is a 3-minute per person time limit for all comments, including public or quasi-judicial hearings. Written comments on any item may also be submitted to the city clerk to be included in the meeting record. It will not be read aloud by the city clerk. All who wish to speak, including council members and staff, need to be recognized by the mayor or Mayor Pro Tem before speaking. Please, if you will turn off all your cell phones or mute your cell phones while the meeting is in session. Clerk, are there any requests from the public to comment on these items?
Yes, Mayor Wright, I have one. It's Joe Nails.
Okay. Good evening.
Testing? Okay. Good evening, City Council, Mayor, and public. I'm here on behalf of the American Legion Post 53. I'm the first Vice Commander of the Legion, and we are having difficulties at our Legion, and we're looking for the support of the public to kind of help us out and get involved with our Legion. We're trying to do more with the community. And, you know, we're starting to have dinners every Friday from 5 to 7, and we're hoping that the public will get involved with us and help us out. And actually, we're having breakfasts also on the second Saturday of every month, and we're hoping to change that to 2 Saturdays during the month. And we're having our 100th anniversary coming up. July 27th, we're having a dinner and dance with a live band. One of the better bands in Riverside County, and we're hoping to get participants, get people involved in this, and to come and join us in celebrating our 100th year here in Hemet. We're one of the oldest legions in Southern California. I think we're probably second to the oldest, or third, somewhere in that area. But we do need participation. We do need people to join us and get involved. Veterans that are out there and be a part of the Legion and help our community grow. We have a lot of scouts that we have there on a monthly basis, and we work with them. We work with the community. We work with our veterans, and we also have one of the best service officers around, which is our Army Ranger, Silver Star recipient, Ronnie Eimel, and he works 2 days out of the week with veterans and trying to get their claims going. So I'm just here to try to help our Legion out and get it to where we can be a little more stable. So if there's any questions,
Joe, did you bring any flyers by any chance?
I'm sorry?
Did you bring any flyers about the
Yes,
event?
I did. I have flyers here.
You can leave them out on the table out there.
I sure
That would
will.
be great.
Yes, thank you, Bonnie.
You bet.
Okay, thank you. And I have tickets also if anyone's interested. And we will have the senator. I have Senator Mike Morrell or his representatives that will be there, and hopefully have the council members and the mayor there also.
Got my tickets.
And we'll be giving awards out. And I have the names of the honorary people that will be getting the awards. So
Thank you.
thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Next item, item number 6, receive and file. All receive and file and consent calendar items are routine in nature and will be acted upon on a single action of the City Council unless otherwise requested by an individual council member, staff, or public for separate consideration. Clerk, are there any
No, I have no.
requests?
Mayor, I do note that you have been previously doing your approval of the minutes or your receipt of the minutes under receive and file. Did you want to move those up to the receive and file area? We can obviously keep them as part of the consent calendar.
Yeah. You could do that.
What would you like done? Because I usually have the mayor sign the minutes that are approved. That's why I put it on consent.
Yeah, the council had previously stated a preference, I think, to have the minutes as a receive and file item.
I think it was the treasurer's report.
You're right. See, I got vacation brain. Thank you very much. Never mind. My apologies.
Okay, so what's the pleasure? We'll just leave it as it is.
Yeah.
All right, I'll move to receive and file these.
Second.
We have a first and second. Please vote.
Passes 5-0.
That passes 5-0, yes. Item number 7. All consent calendar items will be acted upon by a single action of the City Council unless otherwise requested, but again by an individual, council member, or separate consideration. Do we have anybody that wants to pull this item, or pull an item?
I'd like to pull 7A. Or, I'm sorry, 7. Okay, we're on a roll so far. 7C.
Okay. Any other items? Hearing none.
I'll make a motion to approve the remainder.
Okay, this is for approval of all consent calendar items except for items 7C. Please vote. And that passes 5-0.
Okay, and I pulled item 7C, and I'd like to make a separate motion on approving that item, and then, so I'll make a motion to approve 7C.
Okay. Do you have a second?
Second.
Please vote.
Thank you,
That
Mayor.
passes 5-0.
Thank you. And with that, I'd like to introduce Sharon Dana, if you would please stand, Sharon. She is a new member of the Library Board of Trustees, and I just want to thank you for volunteering and welcome to a new position on a commission or board of trustees with the City of Hemet. I know you will do a great job. And just as further introduction, the gentleman sitting on her right is former police Police Chief Richard Dana, and we thank you for coming here tonight. And if you guys would like to go home and have dinner now, you certainly may. But thank you for coming.
Welcome, Sharon. Next item, number 8, public hearing. City Manager, ask for status report. Okay. Procedure for public hearing, the mayor will ask the city manager for the staff report. City manager will call upon the appropriate staff member for the report. Mayor will ask for the clarification of items presented if needed. The mayor will open the public hearing, asking for comments for those in favor or in opposition to the item. The mayor to ask for rebuttal to any comments made. The mayor will then close the public hearing and ask the city manager to respond to any questions raised by the public. We will then bring the discussion back to the city council for direction or action.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. So with that being said, we have Chris Jensen from the Public Works Department to provide the staff report for this item. So thank you, Chris.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and members of council. The item before you tonight is our annual assessments for our streetlight maintenance districts and our landscape maintenance districts. At your meeting on 6/25, the council approved 2 resolutions that initiated proceedings and declared our intention to levy and also order the engineer's report. It also set a public hearing date, which is now this evening. So we have noticed the public hearing in the press enterprise as required for this item, and we have not received any feedback. So at this point, the engineering reports that you have attached to the staff report, as well as the resolutions, may be considered for adoption after we hold a public hearing. So you would just need to open the public hearing, and we can move forward from there.
Okay, I have no gavel, so I'm going to open the public hearing. Is there anyone wishing to speak or make comments in favor of this item? Hearing none, is there anyone wishing to make comments in opposition of this item? Hearing none, then I will close the public hearing. And obviously there's no questions, so any questions from council?
I just have, and maybe it's faulty memory. Have we done a resolution amending and or approving before?
Yes.
It's been a 4-step process. I just haven't noticed the word and or.
I think we might have a little bit different language, but yes, resolutions are required through both pieces of the process. Right.
For landscaping. Okay, I was just looking at that.
We've consolidated into a single staff report.
Yes, I love
but
that.
yes. So
Thank you for that. I'm done.
Anyone else?
I will make a motion to approve items 1, 2, 3, and 4.
8A, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yes.
I'll second. Please vote. And that passes 5-0.
thank you, council.
Item number 9.
So we have Robert Vessel from the Engineering Department, Principal Engineer, to give this staff report. I believe he has a presentation as well for the council. So thank you, Robert.
Madam Mayor, council members, good evening. The item for discussion is the purchase of emergency vehicle preemptive detectors. There's a lot of P's in here, so please buckle up. I apologize in advance. Just some background. EVPs also emergency vehicle preemption, allows emergency vehicles to disrupt a normal signal cycle in order to proceed through an intersection more quickly and under safer conditions. They can extend the green light or they can trigger a cycle altogether. In the image on the screen, you'll see 3 elements of the EVPs. A little bit later on, I'll talk about 4 of those, but just briefly, there's an optical emitter that's placed on the individual vehicle, an optical detector, which is what we often identify as the EVP, and then also a preemption detector card, which is in the signal control cabinet. So as part of the Highway 74 median project, Caltrans has committed to installing and wiring any city-provided EVP hardware on 17 signals within the project boundary. This equates to about 42 of the Opticon detectors. The project boundary is from Promenade Drive, roughly Winco, to Ramona Expressway, which is approximately 7 miles, or 6 inches on my paper. On September 26, 2017, the Council adopted a resolution amending the 16-17 through the 21-22 5-year capital improvement program to include CIP 5666, titled the Florida Avenue Emergency Vehicle Preemption EVP Hardware Project, with an estimated budget of $300,000. As stated before, the project will primarily consist of installation of new EVP detector systems to the existing traffic signals at 17 intersections along Florida Avenue. So on this slide, the graphic is rather small, but I have subsequent slides that break it up a little bit larger. And the intent of this slide is to show that there are a handful of existing EVP systems throughout the city along Florida. There are 4, and I want to mention the correction in the staff report. I identified 3 in there, but upon further review, there are 4 signalized intersections that currently do not have any EVPs that are outside this project. So after this project is constructed, there will still remain 4 signalized intersections with no EVPs. The proposed EVPs are located going from west to east along Florida Avenue at Golden Village, Gilmore Street, Lyon, Palm, State, Harvard, Carmelita, Buena Vista, Santa Fe, San Jacinto, Girard, Yale, Columbia, Dartmouth, Stanford, Meridian, and New Chicago. So I want to point out New Chicago, it is outside of our city's boundary. However, Caltrans is proposing a median that will run the entire distance from Lake Street to New Chicago. And if any emergency vehicle needed to change direction through that reach, they would have to drive to New Chicago to make that U-turn. And after discussing the location with the fire department staff, the installation of EVPs at New Chicago Avenue would allow all emergency vehicles to control that intersection during such a maneuver. All right, existing EVPs. I won't name the intersection, but there's 6 of them. 6 of them that won't be won't be touched from this project. This next slide here shows the combined EVPs along Florida. You'll notice the red triangles represent the 4 locations that will not have EVPs even after this project. It also includes the 6 existing EVP signalized intersections and also the 17 proposed intersections. So as stated before, there are several components to the EVP system. I've identified 4. The first one is the EVP detector and mounting hardware. So as part of the Caltrans Median project, Caltrans has agreed to install the city-provided EVPs and hardware to physically mount them to the existing poles. Item 2 is the wiring that connects the EVP detector to the traffic signal controller cabinet. Again, Caltrans has agreed to provide the wiring and connect it to the EVP and provide the in plug in the cabinet controller. The third item is the system cards, also called the controller, is essentially the brains and which tells the signal to switch. DDL Traffic Inc. will install the cards into the existing controller cabinet and ensure complete compatibility and operation. They'll also make sure that we have the right fittings to hook it up to the card. I understand that was an issue before. Last item, the infrared system emitters for individual emergency vehicles. As I understand, the police and fire, their vehicles are already fitted with the emitters. And I noticed a staff report dated in 2015 that provided a citywide project for both police and fire to retrofit their vehicles with those emitters. The city was able to participate in the Houston-Galveston Area Council, or commonly referred to as the HGAC Cooperative Purchase Program. This allowed the city to reduce cost, encourage competition, and product availability. In this particular instance, we were able to save over $10,000 by using such a cooperative purchase agreement. And under the Hemet Municipal Code, Section 2-329A, which states the purchasing agent may participate in a cooperative purchase agreement for procurement of any supplies or equipment with federal, state, county, and local government agency when that agency has made their purchases in a cooperative manner, which is the case. DDL Traffic Incorporated is an authorized supplier and service provider for Opticon EVP detectors, which is the name brand that the city uses exclusively. Global Traffic Technologies, or GTT LLC, is the manufacturer of Opticon, and is an authorized supplier under the HGAC contract, and the contract number is PE05-19. So there is no impact to the general fund. As previously mentioned, the initial budget was $300,000 established in 2017. The updated estimate or actual cost is $111,836.30. If you were to break that up into its components, it's roughly $97,124.30 for hardware and field support, roughly 10% for contingencies, which is the nuts and bolts that are needed in the field sometimes, which is roughly $9,712. And lastly, $5,000 for staff time. The funding source will be the road maintenance and rehabilitation account, the RMRA funds in accordance with the Road Repair and Accountability Act of 2017, commonly referred to as SB1. In addition, Caltrans will be installing and providing some hardware, the wiring in specifically, as part of their Highway 74 median project. And at this time, the staff, A, recommends to approve the purchase of 42 Opticon EVP detectors and supporting hardware in the amount of $97,000 as stated previously. Authorize the interim city manager to approve the purchase requisition in the same amount, and authorize the finance director to establish an appropriation for the total project cost of $111,836.30, inclusive of all contingencies, purchase orders, and staff time previously mentioned. The fund resides in 221, which is where SB1 funds are housed. And lastly, item D, adopt the resolution approving the purchase of the 42 Opticon EVP detectors and supporting hardware in the amount of $97,124.30. Questions and discussion?
I'll first ask if any, clerk, are there anyone from the public that wishes to speak on this item? Okay, council members, any of you want to speak on this item?
I would like to speak about this. How much will be left over in our SB1 account?
I don't know that number offhand.
The reason I ask is because we're going to go through all this trouble, but we're going to leave out 5 intersections. And can we not spend another $11,000 and make it right? Because I've lived here my whole life and Florida hasn't been right.
Sure.
So if we're going to do this, let's do it.
Sure. The issue is that I think it would be wise, or I think, not wise, excuse me. I think another CIP project would be a better fit because Caltrans has only agreed to install the EVPs at the 17 noted intersections.
17, well, I'm sure that the least they can do is install 5 more.
Sure.
That's insane. But they've been nothing but cooperative, so I guess nothing would surprise me.
Does anyone else have any comments or questions?
Yes, I have some questions. Good report.
Thank you.
Not too many P's in there, so you did a good job.
Tried to stand away as best I could.
The maintenance of the receptors, whatever, the ones on the poles and the cards in the little box and everything, we will be responsible for the maintenance of those, or is that a Caltrans obligation?
That is correct. Caltrans maintains the signals, but I believe the EVPs and the cards will be under our maintenance.
Would be our maintenance. My second question, in the event that some of them need maintenance, would we need to wait for Caltrans approval to touch their equipment, or, and I realize I'm being really sarcastic, and I'm okay with being sarcastic on this, or will we have the ability to go out and fix immediately because it's our traffic on our main street?
Sure. I believe we have an agreement with Caltrans to maintain certain elements. I'm going to defer to Chris Jensen. Off the top of your head, do you know if we are able to enter into Caltrans right away and maintain?
So we actually, on the maintenance side of things, have a really good relationship with Caltrans. So we've got all the back numbers and all of those things. Yeah. So I can only imagine that in the event that we have an issue with one of the EVPs, and because it's related to our safety response, that we're not going to get pushback for.
If we make sure that is an understanding.
Absolutely. And right now, we do have some signals that are kind of shared, and when we've had to assist or have them assist us with pedestals or any kind of little funky stuff that's going on, they're really responsive. They allow us to get out there, but we'll make sure that we've got all of that dialed in and packaged very nicely before these go up. So,
Okay, thank you. And kind of to carry on that, these EVPs are only for the Florida Avenue side of the traffic signal. Is that correct?
No, they allow both the east-west and the north-south.
And the north-south?
Yeah.
Okay, then that leads me on to my next question. Why the heck isn't there one at Hemet Street where Station 5 is? Fire Chief, do you have any ideas on this one? Isn't it important for Engine 5 to get out onto Florida Avenue? Isn't it equally important to be able to go through there?
It's a jurisdictional issue. Made it clear when we presented to Caltrans on your behalf that that was an important part of our response grid. So I think that would be an opportunity to talk to them, revisit.
I think that's a very good item to try and negotiate something further on. And, you know, I agree with Carly, and I understand that the Warren Road, California, and Four Seasons are probably going to be a portion of Caltrans' next median project that should have started at the 215 instead of in our city. I'm going to get all this off my chest. Okay. But I mean, with the number of accidents that have been out at Four Seasons lately, the number at Warren Road, Caltrans has a very dangerous highway, and we need to access it as fast as possible and get our emergency response units there. So if there's anything you guys can do to further negotiate this, I think it should be done. And Hemet Street, to me, is a priority, especially with Station 5 there.
Glad to do that.
And the $5,000 for staff, is that our staff or their staff?
That is our staff.
Thank you. I don't mind paying that. And that's the end of my questions. And my opinion. Good. Oh,
Well,
come on. Say it again.
Yeah, and I have to echo similar concerns. I was going to ask same kinds of questions. It only seems efficient and practical if they're doing this project to do all of the signals within our jurisdictional boundaries. So I would wholeheartedly support some further negotiation with Caltrans to try to leverage them, convince them, or whatever we need to do to say, you know, you're covering the installation of this, we're covering the hardware. Let's get it all done in one fell swoop instead of having to piecemeal it. I think in respect to the efficiency of that project, that makes sense. With respect to the efficiency of our first responders, not having to worry about, okay, do we have preemption on this signal? Oh no, we better stop here because it didn't change. So it just takes all of those X factors out of the equation, makes for a better, efficient project all the way along and for response time. So if there's anything that we can do to facilitate that, I would encourage that. I do have some other questions, somewhat technical. What's the range of these Opticom receivers? So how far away can the signal be read by an emitter from one of our vehicles?
Sure. It's a fantastic question, and unfortunately I don't have the answer for that.
That's my job.
I'm going to need more audience participation for that one.
We can follow up with that. We'll get to the
I
answer for
appreciate
that.
that. I do not. Okay, leave it to me to have a stumper question. Okay. My apologies for not reaching out before the meeting to ask that, but it just occurred to me during your presentation. And another somewhat technical question, are these the same emitters and same Opticom receivers that are located on some of our gated communities that operate access to the gate?
Sure.
I'm not confident that they are. The mechanism that drives both of those seems to be different. However, they are consistent with Opticon systems throughout the city on traffic signals.
Yeah, for example, Four Seasons has, its vehicle gates have Opticom receivers, and they're activated by the emitters that are on the fire apparatus. So they open the gates so they don't have to use the Knox box. So that would be something I'd be interested in finding out. And my rationale for that is long range as we move forward and looking at other gated communities that may not have that, to encourage and maybe even consider block grant funds or something to motivate gated communities to install that. Just again, for the efficiency of the first responders getting quick access rather than having somebody exit their vehicle and use a Knox box key to get in. Seconds count in those golden minutes. So that'd be something not necessarily directly related to this, but your presentation prompted that question as well. And you did mention this in your presentation, that to your knowledge, all of our existing police vehicles and fire vehicles have the emitters currently?
I did inquire about that, and I'm cautious to say all, but I believe that the majority of them do, if not all.
Okay, and one last technical question, I guess. It goes back to the maintenance issue. So all of these signals along Florida are Caltrans owned signals.
That's
Is that correct? So they have the maintenance responsibility of the signal itself, the lights in the signal, and also the controller box that's on the intersection corner. And so the tie-in between these devices and the controlling hardware in the box is going to be an important component of this. So I think the positive working relationship that you have with Caltrans Maintenance Division, but I think it would be important to make sure that we really talk about the integration of all of this and who has what authority and or responsibility for dealing with that, because Murphy is alive and well in every endeavor, and sooner or later something's going to fail, and I don't think we want to waste time finger pointing saying, well, that's your problem. No, it's your problem. You know, it's our community's problem to fix.
I'm going to speak up here, and I want to tell you something too. I think that much like we do with the streetlights, with our purchase we just made, we need to establish a point of demarcation so that we know from this point forward is us, from this point forward is you. So I haven't been in the weeds in this, but I'm sure that it's something that Robert has probably at least touched on with my staff member, Steve Wolney, who's very knowledgeable about this stuff and has that great relationship with Caltrans. So we'll make sure that I note that and we ferret that out too, because it is very important. So
thank you.
I'm just going to suggest that his
There's a sidebar here.
Are there any other questions?
I have something to
Okay.
add. I was just waiting for their sidebar to get over.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. So, first of all, I want to make sure that whatever our requests are, and I don't want us to assume anything, that they will maintain, that they're responsible, we're responsible. So, rather than a verbal agreement, I definitely want that in writing. Also, I might have missed it because I was talking to the interim city manager with regards to the funding. But how was it that only the 17 were determined and not the entire width of Florida that should be included? So
The 6 inches?
yeah.
It is, those are the signals that Caltrans is going to retrofit and upgrade. So I don't believe that they're going to be touching any of the other signals.
No, but how was it that the other ones were eliminated? Why wouldn't?
Sure. I think you have a good discussion point with them in trying to incorporate the, as you were alluding to, trying to incorporate those other intersections. I'm not sure how it originated, but at this time they are only touching 17, and that's where we started.
So we can have some, I was looking at the CIP, it looks like there was an original allocation of about $300,000 for that. It doesn't appear that we would be utilizing all of that. So we could have some follow-up conversations with what could, we could have some options in terms of moving forward with that. So we'd be happy to continue those conversations on our side.
Great.
And see what those items, why they can or cannot be included moving forward. So we can certainly follow up with those items.
I do have one comment. So Caltrans has continued to bill this as a safety project, and yet they're not willing to touch the streetlights in front of a fire station, which is a public safety or Four Seasons. I mean, it's just, it seems like they say what they want to say, when they want to say it, how they want to say it, and they don't really care or really mean what they say. Sure. So that's, I mean, that's a conversation I would have is, you guys keep billing this as a safety project, but yet when we want to put these emitters on a street light or a traffic light right next to a fire station, you're like, oh no, we're hands off on that one.
Sure.
That makes no sense.
So as we... Okay.
One more question, and then I'll... The emitter, or the EVP at New Chicago, all four sides in the county, probably accessed only by Engine 26 and whatever. Would we, thank you, Chief, I knew you'd get up on that one. Part of that is my question, and I know we go out there on mutual aid, and I know we access that. My question is, can our engines, I know our truck can, but can our engines actually make a U-turn at that intersection without doing a three-point turn?
They're going to have to do a modified, there's not going to be a clean turnaround, no. I want to back up, you made mention Engine 76. All the CAL FIRE units have the emitter transmitters on board.
Yeah, I know they go
One
down
that we
for
have
it all.
not talked about is AMR. AMR does have the same technology on their ambulances that are assigned to the valley. But one point that I would like, if I may, because safety is my responsibility on your behalf, is all the preemption is doing for us is smoothing the traffic flow. 21055 of the vehicle code is very specific that our engines are not just because they have a green light, do not just go through the intersection. And in fact, the vehicle code is very specific. They will come to a complete stop, almost to the point where if the right-of-way is violated, that they can react to that. So the traffic preemption is very important to smoothing that travel. We had some discussions offline. I'm simply not aware of that 75-foot, 100-foot reaction time for that to activate with the present opticons that we have in place. I'm not familiar with the vendor, but typically it's 75 feet to 100 feet. It's activated electronically from when the engine or the ambulance or a CAL FIRE unit. On occasion, we're going to have the U-turn. Ladder company will be very difficult, even because it's articulating. But in all cases, it's not going to be a real clean turnaround. So the routes are going to be, I think the critical thing is the east-west for us, as we shared very early on in the trip to Sacramento, and making sure that they understood that east-west corridor for us is our lifeline. We can't affect any kind of effective response on the side streets. That's not what they're designed for. But I just wanted to make the point on the safety piece. Did I answer your question? I didn't mean to ramble. I apologize.
It's a night for rambling. It's
okay.
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 Appreciate it. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, just one other question just popped into my head. Since our fire chief mentioned that police vehicles and fire engines and AMR ambulances will have the emitters and the ability to affect the signal function. And there's a potential that you could have an ambulance responding on a north-south street and a fire engine responding on an east-west route arrive at the intersection at the same time, going to the same call, or maybe to a different call. So preemption priority, which is one issue that the chief addressed about the responsibility to approach the intersection slowly enough to allow reaction time. But I'm just curious about what if you've got two vehicles that have the emitters arriving at the same intersection from different directions at the same time. What does the Opticom know what to do with that situation?
So there are strategies for controlling the signal, and I'm not an expert in the software for Opticom. However, it is programmable, and I would, well, I'll leave it at that. I won't project anything at all. It is something I can add to my list. And
They won't be green at the same time?
I'm sorry?
They both won't be green at the same time?
I do not believe that they will. I think we could choose a superior.
Yeah, we don't want two greens at the same time.
I'm going to apologize again. Mayor, members of the council, in that scenario that you, Mayor Pro Tem, that you pointed out, this is where the people side of the equation overrides technology. That's the visual interaction. We have our crews have the microphone integrated with the ear protection, and all it's cockpit management, just like our pilots are taught. They're communicating, and they come into an intersection. They're going to have a visual. There's going to be communications between all the units. I can't speak for police, but I'm sure that same doctrine applies. So this is great technology, but again, the absolute default is on that driver of that response vehicle in that scenario. So I had to say that. So thank you for.
I appreciate that. Okay, I'm through, Mayor.
So is this going to be something that our Highway 74 ad hoc is going to go back and talk to you guys about?
Actually, we have, we're setting up a scheduled meeting.
Because you'd think that maybe they just thought that because whatever their reasoning was, and they just didn't think about it. Right, we'll just assume that they're going to be flexible.
It's definitely something we'll bring up. Yeah. Okay.
Got a motion?
Yes, but I want you to know that since we have the 300,000 actually approved,
I'll just add it into the motion because we can.
Yeah, so what we can do is,
$1,000.
instead of coming back after having conversations, what we can do is we can incorporate the pricing for the additional 4. If we can have the conversations with Caltrans and they can do that with the pricing that we have, if we were to add those 4, then we can just do that so that it doesn't have to come back to council.
I think. Right, I move that.
Actually, Robert, is it 4 or 5 that are left?
There are 4.
4, okay, thank you.
Okay, Carly? I'll make a motion to approve item number 9 with the addition of the cost for 4 additional cameras approved by the Inland City Manager.
if agreed to by Caltrans.
By Caltrans.
And we're
I don't want to put that in there. They don't
We're
even
going to
do our
hope for
motion.
the best.
I don't want them in our motion.
Okay.
We're just going to say that they have the spending, you guys have the spending authority to get the rest.
Councilmember Meyer, I apologize. You said the additional cameras. Just
Additional
looking at
4.
the bid thing, it's selectors, detectors, the auxiliary panel, and clamps. Just
Entire kit for each operational.
Perfect.
Each pole to be operational with the TV, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Please vote. 5-0. Thank you, Council.
Thanks, Robert.
Robert?
Thank you.
Good job. Okay, now we go on to City Council and staff reports. Councilmember Krupa.
Okay, RCTC is tomorrow. Ramona Bowl Association, their summer concerts are in full swing. Every Thursday, the next 4 Thursdays, will be concerts under the stars starting at 8 o'clock. July 25th concert is Michael Law, who is runner-up on The Voice, and that evening Sunset Rotary will be having a barbecue prior to the concert. So tickets will be available for that, $25 barbecue. It's a good meal for $25. Y'all can come. Library is, summer reading program is in full swing, and summer lunch program is going well. Thank you, Kathy. I appreciate that. And they've posted a couple really, really good things that are going to be happening. There's something about the solar system. Yes, please, because it's really good stuff, and Tony needs to write about this.
Thank you, Tony. Well, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity, Council. We have a planetarium coming to do, you sign up, there are 40 places inside. It will be inside the library. We don't have the dates because we posted a lot this weekend. We do have the return of my dear friend, Gary Hayes, Professor Hayes from Modesto Junior College, coming down to talk to us, we think, about space rocks. But with the recent activity that we felt with earthquake, it may shift that direction. We're fluid. We have a sun-gazing party coming up with the help of the Riverside Astronomical Society. Lots of really fun, for everyone, events. They're not just for little kids.
Okay, so how does the public know about these events coming up?
Why, thank you. We post them on our webpage. We post them in Facebook and Twitter. And you can always drive by the sign. I usually get those things posted on there.
Okay.
Let's come in and visit.
Okay.
Okay? All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Kathy. And Tony will do a good, Tony, or Kathy, take Tony's card. Yes.
Okay, we'll do that.
There you go. Good publicity. League of California Cities, we had a general meeting last night at South Coast Winery in Temecula. It was a kind of a first for Riverside Division in that Carolyn Coleman, who is the executive director of the State League of California Cities, was there and spoke to us. Brandon Lane from Murrieta, council member, is also going in October as the president of the League of California Cities, so that was exciting. And then it was the first time ever that we actually held a joint meeting with two other counties, and San Diego and Orange County divisions of the league were there. Good response to all of it in uniting our voices on concerns that affect all of us, and for lobbying efforts and everything in Sacramento to give more power to things that are happening in Southern California. So we are going to continue with that program and hopefully do this on an ongoing basis. So all in all, it was a very good meeting, and Southern California Association of Governments, the RENA subcommittee on housing meeting was postponed because of the 4th of July, and that meeting is now set for, I believe it's July 22nd. And that's where we're discussing the new formula for establishing RENA numbers for all cities. So I'll report back when that one is over, and that's it.
And say the date, League of Cities Golf Tournament, September 13th.
September 13th. This year the golf tournament is on a Friday, and therefore staff members, I'm going to encourage you to all come out and golf. And I have a story for you that I'll tell you in private about how bad you can actually be to golf in this tournament and still have fun. But that's a whole different story, and that's about Brian Hastings.
Hastings. Okay. Councilmember Meyer.
All right, no RCHCA meeting. In our investment oversight meeting, I'm sad to announce Monday, July 15th, we're going to have to cancel. So our next meeting will be August 19th at 1 p.m. The treasurer's report can be approved at that August meeting. All right, and then I have an update for you on the homeless outreach team meeting. I got to get to my notes here. There's way too many things. So we had our meeting. We went over. We had a bunch of different items, but one of the projects that we want to pursue is our SPDAT training. And so we've been working with the county, and they have agreed to do a SPDAT training for
Oh, that's great.
And depending on how the success is, we can do several if we, if we have people that want to participate. So I'll let you know when that is.
Okay.
If anybody on the task force wants to be a part of that. We don't expect people to go out and, do it alone, but we'll have events. Right. So the SPDAT is the Service Prioritization Decision Assistance Tool, and it's pretty much the vulnerability index for the homeless people on our streets. And the reason that we need this is to have documentation for what is going on our streets. And so without the documentation, we can't address all of the issues. It also establishes, like all of the things that we're discussing here, all have to do with each other. We have the mental illness court, and to establish if someone can be seen in the mental illness court, they have to have a record of their history on our street, right? And so probably our officers know the best on these mental illness issues that we're having, but the people on the street that are out and engaging can also establish the history with the SPDAT. So the SPDAT is a form that we will, at this point, give to Valley Restart to input, because you have to have a different certification for inputting that kind of stuff. So we're looking forward to that. And then once we get the first one done, we will have resource events so that the people that are doing these, that are going out and doing the surveying the homeless people, the transients, will be doing it as a group. So we can have some sort of a resource fair for them. I know it sounds like real, but we'll get them there, and eventually, hopefully we can get a lot of these people surveyed to start establishing the pattern of what they're doing, where they're from. The other thing that we discussed is the housing for enforcement. We have identified a few different organizations. As a council, we'll have to keep in mind funding for that. We've already spent our CDBG money for the year, but I think that we should be able to hold 2 beds in a facility for about $6,000 a year. So if we have 2 beds open and somebody doesn't want to, move off of the sidewalk, then they have the option to go into the bed. Or, if we decide that we have 90 people, we won't have 90 beds, but we will have 2 to enforce. But the reality is that I can walk up and down Florida tonight and offer everybody a place to stay, and sadly enough, the chances that they'll take it won't happen. So there are several places that we could probably get 2 beds at. I talked with some of our law enforcement today. I talked with an attorney from the region that deals with different homeless issues, and so just going over the pros and cons. So we're working on setting that into motion.
Well, we need to do a policy with regarding that, if that's going to be trying to be implemented.
Yeah, I think our policy is going to come from the state. The laws. So whatever the law is going to say is going to establish. So we're still in the preliminary, stages of getting even a commitment in the first place. Some places may be willing to hold a bed without payment. You know what I'm saying? So those are the type of things, like if they would be willing to just keep 2 spots for an emergency situation. So I don't believe that right now, this very moment, it's an issue, but it will be soon. That's what I got when I spoke to the police today. So we just want to make sure that we're ahead of it, right? Ahead of it. The other thing that this was at another meeting later, we talked about having a transient court. And that would probably have to come through Riverside County. But to have a local court where, we have these housing facilities that have the wraparound services. So they come back and they have the social workers that, encourage this and help them with their jobs. This would be at the street level. So once they're out of jail, there's some local accountability. So we know you, we want to help you. You're going to get a fine, or maybe you're going to do community service. Options like that. And it would help get people to understand, we care about you, and we're going to give you options that are manageable for you, but you have to choose that option, right? And they're not all, it's up to them.